Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're unlocking what is essentially a massive, highly structured secret language. It's a language used every single day, all around the world, to translate the sheer complexity of human health into precise, trackable data. We're talking, of course, about the ICD-10-CM system, but more specifically, we're going to decode one of its most rigid, uncompromising features, the 7-character format. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture a patient walking into a chaotic emergency room. Alarms are going off, nurses are rushing past. The patient took a bad fall, their shoulder is in immense pain, and the doctor diagnoses a sprained acromioclavicular joint. How do we take the messy, highly specific reality of that human injury and instantly capture it into a structured medical bill? More importantly, how do we make sure a doctor in New York, an auditor in Texas, and a researcher in Geneva all understand exactly what happened without reading a massive novel-length chart? Well, here is our roadmap for today to figure that out. We'll be covering 1. The secret language of medicine, 2. Anatomy of a diagnosis code, 3. The all-important 7th character, 4. The mysterious placeholder X, 5. Decoding a patient's journey, and 6. Why specificity matters. We're going to break this highly technical manual down into perfectly logical pieces. Section 1. The secret language of medicine. Translating health into data. To truly get the mechanics of this code format, we have to understand the system itself first. ICD-10-CM stands for the International Classification of Diseases 10th Revision Clinical Modification. It was originally issued by the World Health Organization, then heavily modified for the U.S. by the National Center for Health Statistics. Its core job? To classify patient morbidity, which is really just a clinical term for sickness or injury, and to index health records using unique alphanumeric codes. And guys, when I say it categorizes absolutely everything, I mean it. There are over 70,000 highly specific codes in this manual. Sprained an ankle, struck by a macaw, bitten by a pig. Yes, those last two literally have their own specific codes. This system maps every single possibility that can happen to the human body. Section 2. Anatomy of a diagnosis code, macro to micro. So how are these tens of thousands of codes actually built? Let's zoom in. The macro to micro journey works like this. A code spans anywhere from 3 to 7 characters. The first 3 characters give us the category, the broad strokes. It gets you into the right neighborhood of the disease. Characters 4 through 6, they get deep into the weeds. They define the etiology or cause, the precise anatomical site, and the clinical severity. But then we hit that final extension, the 7th character. This is where the true power of the system shines, and honestly, where things get really fascinating. Section 3, the all-important 7th character, the ultimate tool for specificity. This brings us to the main focus today. The 7th character isn't just a polite suggestion. It is the strict, unyielding law of the medical coding universe. Just look at this quote straight from the official guidelines. A code is invalid if it has not been coded to the full number of characters required for that code, including the 7th character, if applicable. In coding, precision is not optional. It is absolutely mandatory. If the manual demands a 7th character, you provide it. Period. If you don't, the code is invalid, the data gets corrupted, and the claim is outright rejected by the payer. It's a hard stop. Section 4. The mysterious placeholder X, forcing the fit. Now, this strict rule creates a pretty unique structural problem. What happens if you only have enough clinical info for a 5-character code, but the rules absolutely demand a 7th character? How do you force that fit? Let's look at a concrete, real-world example from the source material. Take code S43.50, which is a sprain of an unspecified acromioclavicular joint. That's exactly 5 characters long. But the official guidelines for category S43 legally dictate that we must append a 7th character, in this case an A, for an initial encounter for active treatment. So we have to do a little architectural maneuvering. Step 1, start with the 5-character base code, S4350. Step 2, we know we need that A to sit exactly in the 7th slot. So step 3, to maintain the structural integrity of the code, we deploy a placeholder. We literally just drop the letter X into that empty 6th slot. The final, perfectly valid code becomes S43.50XA. It's like the X is a faithful sidekick, just holding the space so the A can sit precisely where the database expects it. Now, what's really interesting about this is that the placeholder X serves a dual purpose. First, padding shortcodes today to meet that strict requirement, like we just saw,
but its second job is saving room for medical advancements tomorrow. For example, a code like M22.8X is purposefully holding a space. That way, in the future, the system can be expanded to specify, say, whether a patella disorder is in the right or left knee, without breaking the entire existing database. It's a brilliantly designed system built to evolve. Section 5. Decoding a patient's journey. Chapter 19. Injuries. Let's move to Chapter 19, covering injuries, poisonings, and external causes. Here, the seventh character transcends being just a rigid structural rule. It actually becomes a storytelling tool.
Let's follow a hypothetical injury to see the story unfold. Patient arrives at the ER receiving active treatment. X-rays, evaluation, they're in acute cane. We use the seventh character, A, for an initial encounter. Fast forward 6 weeks, they're going to the clinic for routine care during the healing phase, maybe getting a cast off. The root code stays exactly the same, but the seventh character morphs into a D for a subsequent encounter. Finally, an entire year later, they develop a joint contracture or a painful scar directly resulting from the old injury. Now we use the seventh character S for a sequela or late effect. We're using one single root code, but telling a completely different chapter of the patient's story just by changing the final character. And speaking of the S for sequela, there's a fascinating exception to the usual coding rules here. When you code a sequela, the guidelines state you must use 2 separate codes, and the sequencing is highly specific. You actually code the specific sequela first, like the scar itself. Then you follow it with the original injury code, appending that seventh character S. That little s literally dictates the entire clinical order of the patient's chart. Section 6. Why specificity matters. The golden rules. As we wrap things up, let's step back and look at the big picture. Why do medical coders, doctors, and data scientists care so deeply about the exact placement of an A, a D, or an X? So the crucial point boils down to these golden rules. First, if a seventh character is required, it must always, without exception, sit in the seventh position. Second, use the placeholder X to pad any empty slots to get there. Third, this isn't just bureaucracy, it elegantly tracks the exact phase of a patient's care. And fourth, without it, the codes are completely invalid. By sticking to these rules, we transform chaotic human medical encounters into a clean, universally understood global database. Which leaves us with this final thought. When millions of patient encounters are coded with this exact, unyielding precision every single day, we aren't just processing hospital bills, we're actively building the world's most detailed map of human disease and recovery. So how does this microscopic level of alphanumeric data shape the future of global healthcare research? How will the X's and S's we code today uncover the massive medical breakthroughs of tomorrow? It is absolutely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I hope you never look at a medical bill the exact same way again.